Good morning, and thank you for joining me on the Path to Liberty. It's Monday morning, March 9th, 2020. And on this episode today, there was a report last week, Thursday, that came out through some Freedom of Information Act request documents that were released by 1-0 about a former, of course, paintball and surveillance cam company based here in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, from a number of years ago that now has gotten into the police body cam industry. Well, they've got cameras sold to over 1,500 departments, government agencies and police departments in the country and around the world, and they are now pushing live facial recognition technology onto these companies, so that can be a huge thing. So we're going to go over that report, what's going on, so you are up to date. But first of all, my name is Michael Bolden. We broadcast live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time from here in my home office and studio in downtown Los Angeles for the 10th Amendment Center. We have got a bunch of live streaming channels that we broadcast on. That's YouTube, Facebook, DLive, Twitch, and Periscope, plus a number of archived audio or archived video editions, BitChute, BitTube, Library, and Brighteon.com, plus, of course, the audio-only podcast edition that you can find on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and elsewhere. You can find all of those archives, all of the show notes, all the links that I reference in each article or in each episode over at 10thamendmentcenter.com/path to liberty, all spelled out. Again, 10thamendmentcenter.com/path to liberty, all spelled out. I just want to take a look over in the live chat and say hello to everybody joining in, whether you're here live or in the archive. I'm very grateful for you spending some time with me, and of course, smashing the like button, leaving comments, sharing all of these things, all the platforms that we are listed on. They all are actually pretty easily triggered. So when you leave a comment or you like a video, whatever it may be, you leave a review on iTunes, all of these free actions actually trigger the platform's algorithm and tells it to show the program to more and more people. So thank you, all of you, for joining me, whether it's live or in the archive. Hi to Carrie Norris, Dan Reed, Justin Morrison, Patricia Dance, Tyler B., Pete Hodgkins, Benjamin Blondin, Kyle Anzalone. I'm not sure if I ever get your name right, Kyle. Kyle does a lot of really good work on foreign policy. You should definitely pay attention to his writing and podcasting as well, and Essential Freedom. Let's get into this. First of all, the reason that I found out about this situation was through a tweet from Trevor Tim, a guy that I follow pretty regularly. He's the head of the Freedom of the Press Foundation. And check this out. He says, when body cam, and he's really good on surveillance issues as well. He said, when the body cam trend started a few years ago, civil liberties advocates warned that cops would soon start using them with facial recognition. And I've talked about this for a few years as well. I think I probably heard it from someone else who's much better in privacy or just kind of on top of this stuff. But it made me think, like, oh man, of course, out of the whole Ferguson, Missouri thing, a lot of people were calling for police to have more body cameras. And this was supposedly to make sure that the police were more accountable. You keep track of what's going on, what the interactions were like. But a lot of us were thinking, like, oh man, this is just another surveillance tool for these. And what kind of stuff are they going to add to that, these body cameras? Well, here in California, there's at least a 3-year moratorium, a full ban on the use of facial recognition or biometric surveillance in police body cameras. And that actually shut down what's probably the largest local facial recognition surveillance police program in the country down in San Diego. So that's positive. But this is going to go pretty big time, and I think it doesn't take a lot of imagination to see where this is going to lead. He says the cops were going to start using them. I just kind of rambled there, but Trevor, let's give Trevor the respect he's due here with this tweet here, because it encouraged this entire episode. He said, when the body cam trend started a few years ago, civil liberties advocates warned that cops would soon start using them with facial recognition if they weren't banned. Now a company has a contract to do just that with over 1,500 departments and other agencies. So here's the report from 1-0. This is from David Gershgorn with 1-0. It's a project of medium.com, but they do a lot of really interesting stuff on surveillance, AI technology, and the like. And here's how he puts it. Wolfcom, A company that makes technology for police is pitching body cameras with live facial recognition. Now, live facial recognition is more of the sci-fi movie style. It's not that they have a picture, it uploads to a database, and then they, it's going through all the different images and waits till it matches. Live facial recognition on body cam. So you'd have a body cam unit on your chest or wherever, and then you've just got a cell phone. And I'm assuming that at some point they're going to put this like Google Glass style, either on glasses or on face masks, shields, or something like that, so they can kind of see it, well, heads up. But for the time being, at least how this is being trial run right now, is you just have a literal Android or iOS app that works with the body cam, and as it looks, it highlights faces and gives names, and gives audio feedback on who the person is, whether they have any priors, whether they're a person of interest. And of course, that could be a good thing to catch bad guys. But we know that most of the laws on the books shouldn't exist, so most people who are seen as bad guys by government are really just nonviolent, just average people that shouldn't be bothered in the first place. But anyway, so they go on. They said they're now pitching body cameras with live facial recognition to law enforcement groups across the U.S., 10 has learned. It's a move that pushes against industry norms. And I've covered facial recognition, body cams many times on this show. I believe I mentioned at least once that the largest manufacturer of these products, a company named Axon, they declared sometime last year that they would not put it in their hardware. The concern, of course, from most of these privacy advocates, they're not really, I don't know about this guy here, Dave Gershgorn, but most of the supposed privacy advocates aren't really acting like privacy advocates. They're acting like racial equality advocates. And that's an honor. You want to treat people equally, no matter what their skin color, their religion, their personal choice, whatever it may be. The non-aggression principle. So you don't care who someone is or what they look like or what they wear or what they think or what they say. That's their choice. And you can ignore them if you want. But if you act like your only concern with facial recognition is that there's going to be a huge racial disparity in how it works, then that's going to be a problem in the long run. I agree that there's certainly, as a white male, facial recognition is incredibly accurate. At least the cop-run facial recognition from companies like Amazon Recognition and probably, I don't know about Wolfcom. We'll see it. I'm going to get into some of their shady business practices from the past here as well. But as a white male, it's actually incredibly accurate on me. Facial recognition is really accurate. Like if I'm walking around, it'll be able to know the difference between me and some other white male. And I can't remember what the order is, if it's a black female or a black male, where it's like up to 30% wrong, where it's going to look at one dude or one female and think it's somebody completely different. And a lot of people who are opposing this, and you've probably heard me talk about this, but I think it's really important to just hammer this home. But if that's your only concern, sooner or later, as it feeds more information into the system, the AI gets smarter and smarter and smarter, the algorithm gets better. It's going to find out where the errors are, and over a period of 3 or 5 or 10 years, it's going to rapidly improve, and eventually everyone is going to be in what we can call a perpetual lineup with these facial recognition systems, whether it's on a police body camera, or if it's on a street lamp, or just on a ALPR, on a vehicle, or on a license plate reader, on a red light camera, whatever it may be. Eventually, everyone's going to be in a perpetual lineup. So if your only concern is racial disparity and violating people's rights, in the long run, that's going to harm things. So I think a lot of organizations have been bad on that. I'm assuming that Axon, that's the reason that they didn't include it, because it's not accurate enough yet. NEC is another company, according to 10. We all know NEC, huge electronics corporation, global, which sells live facial recognition elsewhere in the world, has also not sold it to U.S. law enforcement. So again, I can only assume that NEC wouldn't do that with U.S. law enforcement, or the U.S. law enforcement hasn't picked up on it as much yet because of the protests over that issue. But when that gets resolved, I think we're going to see a serious problem. We can look back on these episodes in the coming years and see how that all plays out. But going a little bit further in the report here, Wolfcom claims to have sold body cameras to at least 1,500 police departments, universities, and federal organizations across the country. It has been developing live facial recognition for the Halo, Wolfcom's newest body cam model, according to documents and a video obtained by 1-0 through public records requests. So what's going on next here? Here's a quote from one of those emails. And this comes from biometricupdate.com. Again, I will include the links to these in the show notes. They say, with real-time facial recognition, Wolfcom hopes to give our friends in law enforcement they always call them their law enforcement friends. Government people are not your friends. Unfortunately, the whole Barney Fife, Andy Griffith thing is not real. That is a fantasy. It doesn't happen. Maybe in some small local community it does. You know, I was at my local juice shop last week and there was an LAPD guy there. He's wearing his outfit, and usually I want to just get away from these people because they're scary. But he was hanging out with a date, obviously. I don't know if she was a ride-along or something, but he was obviously hanging out with this chick, and they were kind of flirting a little bit, and they're at the sample stand, and they were all very friendly with me. But in most situations, I don't want to be around the police, especially in a big city like Los Angeles. So it's pretty absurd that they call them that. But anyways, they want to help our friends in law enforcement use tools that will help them identify if the person they are talking to is a wanted suspect, a missing child or adult, or a person of interest. The company's founder, Peter Austin Honorong, wrote, and I apologize if I get that name, wrote in an email to Oklahoma's Noble Police Department, one of several documents obtained by 1-0. And we actually have a copy of that. Again, I will include this link in the show notes. This came from Medium's 1-0, but you can actually see the image here of that email. Hello, Animal Control Officer Jared Cox. That's who it's addressed to. Our Halo body camera will soon have facial recognition technology. This is May 14th, 2019, to help officers identify missing persons, fugitives, suspects, and people with outstanding warrants. Please see our latest video here. It's just a Dropbox. They've kept it up because it's clearly being shared all over the place, and I'll play part of it here for you in just a moment as well. But they're saying with real-time facial recognition, there it is. Wolfcom hopes to give our friends in law enforcement tools that will help them identify if the person they are talking to is a wanted subject, et cetera, et cetera. But it's interesting that it went to Animal Control Officer Jared Cox. That's from Peter Austin Honorong, the CEO here in Pasadena, California. Now let's take a look and see if I can pull up this video here, because I think it's pretty interesting. Oh, here we go. And I'm not sure if you guys are going to get the audio here, but I'll read a quick description of it in just a moment. No, I don't. Oh, it might be playing some of the audio here. Let me just play it out here. So anyways, in this video, there's 3 people standing side by side. As they enter the body camera's field of vision, a nearby computer monitor shows a graphic over the live video, guessing their age, their gender, and facial expression, and announcing if they are a missing person, they have an outstanding warrant, or are wanted for felony assault. So it's basically, actually, it's just like a sci-fi movie. I feel like I've seen so many films like this where the government agents, the cops are walking around and they literally just look at somebody and they've got a pop-up in their field of vision that tells them, oh, this is so-and-so, we know who you are, where you've been. Think of all the things that they're getting from social media, all of our posts, that someone may be opposing cops or they may be opposing a particular government official. How are they going to use the agents of government to do that? For those of you who, and I don't think there's going to be too many people watching here who think that these government agents are all on our side, protecting us from just one party or another, that's just absurd, because I think both sides will clearly continue to use this type of technology for all kinds of nasty stuff. You can actually see, I pulled up here from wolfcomusa.com, this little handheld device. It must be no more than like 3-4 inches. If you've ever seen a body cam, it's generally pretty similar to what a lot of the police body cams are. It's about 3 inches tall, maybe 4 inches tall, 2 inches wide, and less than an inch deep. It's a pretty small device. And this is the Halo body camera. Again, links in the show notes, 10thamendmentcenter.com/path-to-liberty. It has a whopping 10-hour battery life. It's waterproof. It has automatic night vision capability that can see and record in pitch black darkness. Built-in GPS, and I'm reading from wolfcomusa.com right now. Built-in GPS stamps the coordinates of the camera onto every video and photo files. During a foot pursuit, an officer can mark the location of drugs or weapons tossed by a suspect for later retrieval. AES encryption prevents data from falling into the wrong hands. The camera has pre-record and post-record, ensuring everything is captured. Scroll down to read camera features. So one of the things that a lot of people complain about with police cameras is that, I mean, you can just kind of play this out in your head. A cop's getting ready to beat you up or something or do something wrong. They're going to turn, suddenly their camera malfunction. So this is probably one of the positive things that I've noticed in this device here is that they have pre and post record, that even if someone manually shuts it off, they keep recording. I'm not sure how long, and maybe the agents who use them shouldn't know how long that happens, or maybe they're just continuous recording all along. Maybe it shouldn't even have a manual override. I'm not sure how that goes, but it specifically includes that capability to pre and post record, because you definitely want to collect as much data on what the government people are doing as often as possible. Now, check this out. Back from 1.0, they sent a bunch of requests like, what are you guys doing with this? How's the accuracy? They don't have any information on this. And again, 1.0 is really kind of focusing heavily on the accuracy problems, not really that the whole system is a violation of privacy, because searching someone's person, seizing an image of it, persons, houses, papers, and effects without a warrant based on probable cause, particularly describing the person, place, or thing to be searched or seized, using that standard, whether it's the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution for the United States or it's a similar provision in virtually every state constitution, you literally can't do facial recognition technology or facial recognition surveillance of everybody without having that type of that data. So if they're just walking around in a crowd and literally just facial recognition scanning everybody, this is a total mass surveillance tool. It is a violation of all the warrant requirements on state and federal level. You just can't do it properly. But anyway, so they're focusing primarily on inaccuracies throughout the report, and they said Wolfcom did not respond to multiple requests for comment. In a February email to the Los Lunas Police Department, I think that's New Mexico, maybe someone can correct me on that, the company's communications specialist said it had no obligation to respond to 1.0's press inquiries, according to records obtained via public records request. So I'm not sure, and I should actually look into that, but they're literally emailing a police department that's saying, look, we have no obligation. Maybe, and I'm just guessing here, maybe the police department's saying, hey, we're getting some questions on this from a member of the press. What do you think we should do? And they're saying in response, we don't have any obligation to get back to them. And when we go through their Yelp reviews from their previous business here in Hollywood, maybe it'll give you a little insight on how that company operates. But they go on. They say Wolfcom wasn't always in the body camera business. The company originally started as a spy equipment manufacturer and paintball retailer based in Hollywood. So we found a link to their, and I'm not sure if I got this from the article or just Googling somewhere else, but I found a link to their Yelp reviews. Hollywood Spy Shop. And it's Sunset and Bronson. It closed probably a number of years ago. It looks like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 2015 or so. And that neighborhood was, well, right around the corner, there's the Hollywood Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. There's Sunset Bronson Studios. I mean, there's a huge movie studio literally right there, about a block away from where this is. There's a 24-hour Home Depot. Maybe it's not 24-hour anymore. So it's a busy area, but when that business was open up until about that point, that part of town was literally kind of like electronics resellers, spy equipment. It was a lot of chains and fences on the doors, we'll put it that way. It wasn't really a great neighborhood to walk around at night, and you'd find some of these kind of more scammy businesses. Now it's probably a little bit more fancy than it was at that point, but Hollywood Spy Shop, check out some of these reviews. Literally, every review is 1 or 2 stars. This is just an interesting aside. I don't base everything on what goes on Yelp, but check this one out. This one from Sirstan F. in Los Angeles. Hollywood Spy Shop, Hollywood Paintball, Wolfcom Enterprises are all the same entity. This was on January 8th, 2015. He says, in need of a security camera, I came to the shop looking for a feasible option. Much like the prior Yelp reviewer, I was assisted by someone who could do little to answer my questions or assist. I was sold an $185 camera and was offered zero help in opening it up, setting it up, making it work. This is a verifiable piece of junk. They refused to make a refund on a non-working camera. How are they still in business? Avoid this scam shop. Literally, fraudulent scam ripoff over and over and over. They post about how, like this person said, Michael K. said, they didn't even know the difference between standard definition and high definition. They said, quote, more better pixels to them. So I guess my hope in reading this and kind of laughing about how bad the reviews were of this paintball. So it was a paintball company. I feel like I've been to a paintball company in that part of Hollywood at some point years ago. But paintball supply company, they sold paintball guns and other supplies, and then they switched to spy cameras, and now they're doing, that's out of business, and now they're doing police body cameras and adding on live facial recognition and pushing it. So my hope in checking this out, it gives me kind of a glimmer of hope that maybe they're just really crappy at the products that they make. And the hope is that the technology that they're pushing to law enforcement is just a scam, I guess. I don't want people to be ripped off, but I also don't want them to be able to be the first to develop this type of product that can be used to spy on everybody. I'm not sure what you think about that, but to me, it gives me, David Sisko over in the live chat says, my coronavirus mask avoids facial recognition technology. And Frank I says, so do my Groucho glasses. I'm not sure if mine do. I've got an area just below my glasses, which is very prominent, that I think seems to make facial recognition work really, really well. So I'm going to have to go to a full mask at some point. But they do have technology now to actually check out what you're... So first of all, if it wasn't for a number of states banning you from covering your face in public, and that is growing... They also are developing technology to identify you by your gait. I'm not 100% sure on the accuracy of that, but at least what I've read over the past few years is that it's like another footprint. Everyone has a gait that's at least slightly different. Jim Raynor asks if this tech works with Real ID. I'm not sure what you actually mean by the question on that. Real ID Act is a forced national identification card. It's not something that's authorized in the Constitution. You can oppose it for violating the 10th Amendment or having the federal government involved in a driver's license situation, but you could also oppose it as an unfunded mandate, a violation of privacy. I'm not sure. They're certainly scouring. In order to make facial recognition work, you have to have a database of accurate images. So if they have 10 images, if they have 10 images of my face, certainly over time, any new images will be able to look at certain parts of my face and say, well, this new image is very similar to that. We know with, and Amazon is actually probably very good at this, we know with 60% accuracy or 99% accuracy that this person is correct. One of the big problems with Amazon is that instead of just having a standard of, well, we're not going to assume that this is the same person with a particular accuracy level, whatever the technology should have, 100%, 99.999, I'm not sure. They allow each law enforcement agency that uses their recognition product to actually use a slider and change the level of accuracy. So you could set it down to 60, 70, 80%. I'm not sure the low end of the spectrum on that, but certainly. Anyways, so Yelp reviews are pretty bad. And closing it out here, just a quick overview of where the company is now. But they are based in a small, out-of-the-way office in Pasadena, California. To be honest with you, I'm sure this part of town, Pasadena is not a cheap part of town. They claim to have sold more than 1 million body cameras to 1,500 agencies in more than 35 countries. The company has won a smattering of work for the federal government, most regularly with the Department of Defense, earning about $100,000 since 2014. Again, I will put all these links to the show notes, including the very comedic Yelp reviews, which I think is probably just the most positive thing out of this story. I have not seen a lot of other coverage on this yet. I looked over the weekend and briefly this morning, other than biometric update, there was very little. Trevor Tim tweeted about it. We've seen a number of things on Twitter, but not a lot of other people actually reporting on the situation. And at least from the email to that police department, it looks like it looks like Wolfcom isn't really interested in responding to press on this, or maybe they just don't think medium.com could have a legitimate press outlet. I don't know. Maybe I should probably send them an email and just say, oh, I did some coverage on it. Here's my YouTube video. But who knows? Anyways, let me just take a quick look in the live chat. Hopefully you're finding this interesting and educational. Most of all, of course, we want to make sure that we're all learning something. I'm learning as I go on this as well. The Salt Lakers say, beware of the United States Department of Evil. That sounds pretty redundant. You two asked me if I wanted to report the Groucho glasses comment. Seriously? That's Patricia Dance. I know Patricia's a pretty honest person, so I can't imagine. That's strange. Sarah Littrell says they are for sure going to know it's me. There she goes skipping down the road with that ridiculous mask. Oh, I think I saw a comment from Sarah saying I'm going to start skipping to be able to get around the gate situation. But yeah, the idea that we have to keep going through these concepts that seem almost absurd. Cover your face. Oh no, we got to have a ban on Sharia law or people covering their faces wearing hijabs or whatever because we're concerned about that. Well, it ends up being used as a way to block you from being able to protect yourself from pervasive, constant facial recognition surveillance. You can look and see, as if you watch what happened before that whole virus thing started happening, all the resistance happening in Hong Kong, you would often see people wearing not just gas masks, but all kinds of coverage over their faces because there's facial recognition everywhere in China. And if NEC, I think that's a Japanese company, if they're offering this stuff all over the place, I'm sure it's being used there, and they're just building it up for the time they're going to implement it here. Maybe Wolfcom will fail because in their previous businesses, they've just done really crappy customer service. They've sold low-quality products that overpromise and underdeliver instead of the other way around. So maybe they'll fail at this, which is positive, but that doesn't mean one of these other giants, Axon, NEC, whatever. These guys could just be setting the stage for someone who's much better at it in the future, and they just want to get their foot in the door before they see that happens. But so I think in the long run, we've got a very, very dangerous citizen situation on our hands. Oh, and Paige Michelle over on Facebook is making the same comment. Basically, China residents are probably loving that. Makes it hard to ding their social credit score. And we know that type of thing that's coming here as well. Nathan says, so if it makes a mistake and recognizes you as somebody else, you lose your rights. Well, and that is one of the concerns about the error. I mean, of course, I don't like it because it's error prone now, but it's primarily with people of color where it's error prone. It is not really error prone with me. So if it says, you know, this guy is advocating that people exercise their right to keep and bear arms or the right to free speech or whatever their rights, and the government doesn't want them to, maybe they'll say, well, this guy's an anti-government terrorist or an anti-government agent that's listed on the Southern Poverty Law Center's website as one of 30 leaders of a radical group, anti-government group, which is all factual. So at some point, I would think this type of facial recognition tied in with what the Southern Poverty Law Center sends out to law enforcement agencies around the country, I'll probably get flagged at some point. I will certainly let you know if that happens, but I don't think LAPD, I don't see, the nice thing about being in a city, the bad thing about being in a large city like this are some of the many bad things that come with it. But the nice thing about it is I almost never see government people at all, cops, other inspectors, whatever it may be. There just aren't enough. So most of the communities that you go to here in LA, at least where I live in downtown, where the population is really dense, you just don't see a lot of police presence. There's no foot patrols. Very rarely do you see cops going around. But for all we know, they're running drones with facial recognition, and that's going to expand over time. Rob Wood, oh, okay, so I keep saying things that seem to come up in the live chat. Rob Wood said they were flying surveillance drones over the peaceful gun rally in Virginia, and I'm sure they captured face recognition from every gun owner at the rally. And even if they didn't, we know they have the capability to do that, at least snapping the pictures. Now, how far away they can do that, I'm not certain, but we know that this is an application where it's very concerning on how this can be used. So let's say all the good people, the people that you support personally, are in charge of Virginia. Obviously, that never happens. But let's just say people you support 100% are in charge of government at all levels in Virginia. But there is a process to be like, well, we're just going to have these surveillance drones flying over, and we're just going to get some video or pictures just to make sure there's no problems. Well, sometime in the future, someone you don't support or somebody who wants to take your rights at every single turn or violate your rights at every single turn may want to use that footage and build a profile and knowing everybody who's been to that particular rally. Well, these are the people we really need to focus on. And if you watched my episode, and I can't remember when I did it, this is just popping up in my head. It was basically on AI surveillance and pre-crime here in the LAPD. They basically go and stalk people. You get a certain score. It's not like the credit score that was mentioned previously in the chat, but it's a threat score. And they will sometimes literally go and knock on your door and tell you that you're kind of like, oh, we got an eye on you. So it's really, really creepy how they can implement this type of thing. And again, I don't think it takes a lot of imagination to think about how really bad government people will use this type of power in the future. Essential Freedom says, off topic, but I thought I'd mention it. Second Amendment rally in Missouri on April 7th. That's cool. Put a link to it if you can in there, and we'll try to get the word out. Frank I says, if facial recognition is allowed, the serious criminals will start using latex noses and dental appliances. Yeah, and I think the excuse for this and so many other things is to protect us. But as we know, and as John Adams said back when he was good in 1776, fear is the foundation of most governments. He's only wrong by using the word most. Fear is the foundation of government power. That should be obvious to all of us right now. So if we're afraid of some criminal coming to get us or some terrorist coming to get us or some disease coming to get us, whatever it may be, if we're always afraid and then we're looking to government to say, you know what, you can violate everybody else's rights because I don't care if you know where I'm going because I've got nothing to hide, so I've got nothing to fear. You can watch whatever I'm doing. Just protect me from these terrorists or these bad guys or whatever. In time, someone in the future, again, and I can't repeat this enough, someone in the future is going to use that technology against your friends, your family, and probably even you. The rally is on the 11th, not the 7th. Salt Lakers says, stay away from rallies. They spread coronavirus and propaganda. Well, I mean, whatever your choice, Salt Lakers, is as far as going to rallies, I think the problem is, and maybe there is a lot of propaganda. I used to go to a lot of anti-war rallies, and where I got frustrated with the rallies is they really weren't anti-war, at least at the time when Bush was president, George W. Bush. When I was going to those rallies, I was just opposed to his unconstitutional, immoral, illegal wars. And then I would go there, and they weren't just anti-war. It was literally almost entirely about stop war so we can do this other socialist garbage. And a friend of mine who's written and worked with the TAC for a long time, Nick Hancock, in fact, he did an interesting blog for us a couple of weeks ago, but he was running an organization that was doing kind of twin pillars of work against the wars and against the Federal Reserve. Kind of goes hand in hand. And he went to these people who are organizing these other protests from the left, the hard left, and he said, look, you know, let's try to get something done. Let's see if we can organize an anti-war, pro-peace rally. I'll drop my and the Fed, and I'll do that in a separate rally. And you drop your, expand government spending on healthcare and schools and all that. And let's just focus on this one thing. We can have speakers from across the spectrum. It'll show the political spectrum. It'll show kind of a unity, at least on this one issue, and maybe we can get something done. And the organizer of the commies basically said, nah, never. We'll never work with you on anything. So if you want to be anti-war, you got to come through me, was basically the mentality. And I was disillusioned by that. So maybe you've got a point there, Salt Lakers, about spreading propaganda. But the problem isn't necessarily just the propaganda. It's the fact that government wants to create a profile on who goes where. So they know if the people in charge want policy A over time, 5, 10, 50, 100 years, well beyond the death of all of us, they'll be able to have a profile of what everybody is interested in. When I go to Amazon.com, and I don't do it very often anymore because they're so engaged in the surveillance state, the warfare state, so many things. But every now and then I'm still there. I'm trying to wean myself off of it. But if you ever scroll down and you're on the desktop and you add something to your cart, they say, would you also like to purchase such and such? And so many times it's because they just have so many data, so much data that they get it right almost all the time. They know that I might be interested in this because people who buy this niche product are almost certainly involved in this. And I think that's basically how we see this type of algorithm, these types of profiles playing out. People who do this are very often likely to do that. And the more data you put in that over a period of decades, the smarter that Skynet is going to be. And, well, anyways. Dan Reed, interesting point, and I'm going to bail here in just a second. One chief issue with the I'm not doing anything wrong thinking is they who watch may decide what your doing is. And that's a much better way, Dan, thanks, dude, a much better way of putting that than what I'm saying. I'm saying someone else in the future is going to flip that around or whatever. But when you're saying I'm not doing anything wrong, you're only not doing anything wrong under the current standards. What if the people in charge think you are doing something wrong? Then what you think is doing something okay is not in the future. And that is an ongoing problem. In fact, that's partly what I covered about the bump stock ban in my episode last week, Friday. In essence, and this is what Gorsuch said on the Supreme Court, even though I'm not a huge fan of him, but he was absolutely correct when he's talking about, like, look, for years, the ATF told us that a bump stock was not a gun and it cannot be regulated as one under the National Firearms Act of 1934, the Gun Control Act of 1968, both of which shouldn't exist. But anyways, Gorsuch didn't say that, but he said, you know, they've been saying that it's not a gun. Now, all of a sudden, the next day, they've just changed it because we've got a new administration, and this administration thinks that an accessory, a part, is now a machine gun, and so therefore it can be prohibited. So just changing things as time goes based on what political party or what individuals in charge is really the great threat there. So good point, Dan. I really appreciate that. Of course, let me give Dan a little shout out for the Culinary Libertarian podcast. You guys should check that out. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today. I hope you had a great weekend. If you support the show, of course, smash likes, reviews, comments, all that stuff. And if you really want to pitch in, our membership program, I see a number of you guys out there that are already members, and I appreciate that. But our membership program starts for as little as $2 a month. That's 10thamendmentcenter.com/members. Again, 10thamendmentcenter.com/members. I appreciate you joining me today. I'll see you on Wednesday. I hope you have a great Monday. See you next time here on The Path to Liberty.